Hello, welcome to another episode of Deebo and The Donks. On today's episode, we're going to go ahead and talk about poker. The local poker scene will be the gist of it. We will talk maybe a little national poker, but we are going to talk about the local poker scene mostly. Some of you do and do not know me. My name is Deebo in the poker world. My name is actually Dan, but you can call me whichever you prefer. Just don't call me late for drinks. I'm kidding. So basically, what we're going to talk about today in the poker scene is, what's happened the last 4 to 5 months, I guess, which, of course, with COVID-19 is the mess that has ensued for the poker community. I'm obviously a large part of the poker tournament scene. I know a lot of the cash players, and I know a ton of the poker players on the tournament side because I do run poker tournaments at a local casino. It's been tough. I'm aware what's going on, as many of you are. I feel pretty bad for everyone that loves to play poker as a sport or as just a form of entertainment or to kill time, and it's been tough without it in a casino. I believe people go to casinos and will always go back to casinos to play poker because it's safe. There's reliability, there's consistency, and there's a way of protecting yourself you feel more safe in the room. You're not likely to get robbed in a casino. You're not likely to be assaulted in a casino. Very minimal chances of these types of things. I've never seen either, and I believe that it's pretty controlled. There's security guards. There's people that'll help you if something goes wrong, and you feel that safety. And if you're new to poker or even experienced in poker, you prefer that. When you play in a home game, it's more relaxed. A lot more cursing, a lot more fun. I get that they're going like crazy during COVID. I'm not oblivious to it, but then there's that bad part, which is a lot of things. In my experiences of learning about it, I know home games get robbed. I know people throw punches. I know, lots of stuff happen. You're in a room with 35 people. There's a chance something's going to go wrong from time to time without somebody having authority over everyone. And the person hosting that game, how much authority do they have? I mean, you'd have to have immense respect for that person to worry about it. Yeah, obviously you'd want to act appropriate. But then there's problems with alcohol. What do you do when one person gets hammered and starts puking on the table? What do you do when that person starts talking like a complete fool? Well, in a casino, you get rid of them. It's time to go home, pal. Have a good night. In a home game, it's a lot tougher now. You can't call the cops. You can call the cops to have him come pick him up if he's being belligerent, or she's being belligerent, I should say. It's a tough situation. Home games are prevalent right now more than ever, probably in the history of Minnesota. And even the Midwest, because people couldn't go to casinos for a long period of time. I'm not 100% sure the casinos in Iowa ever shut down. I don't know for sure. I was under the indication that they didn't, that they did not shut down. I believe Diamond Joe's and a couple others, Horseshoe, did shut down their poker rooms for a while, but then opened them up a while ago. Not 100% sure on that. Somebody could probably correct me on that if they choose to. But I do know that Wisconsin closed a lot of their stuff for a while. Minnesota obviously did, and North Dakota and South Dakota. North Dakota has just a couple of casinos that matter, and same thing with South Dakota. Most of those are out there, way out west, at Deadwood area. So with that in mind, I believe that home games are really, really prevalent right now, and they're fun. Don't get me wrong. I mean, everybody likes to go to them, but at the same time, you don't have the security. You don't have the notoriety. Let's be honest. Nobody knows you won a tournament if it's not posted on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and every other, possible thing. Nobody ever knows you win. And a lot of people play tournament poker for the notoriety and the money. They go hand in hand. You get one with the other. And that was kind of always the allure when I was younger, much younger. And playing in tournaments was, you got on poker magazines, you got listed in articles, you got your name everywhere. And that was fun, and the money was more fun. But I think people play for both reasons, and sometimes they play for both reasons pretty equally. Some people don't really need the money. Who couldn't use the money? Don't get me wrong, but there are tournament players out there that they're just playing for the thrill of victory, competition. It's a sport to them. That they get that excitement they used to get when they were younger, playing a sport, playing an event, whatever it may be. And what's more individual than maybe golf or tennis than poker? If you're looking for that adrenaline rush, if you're looking for that, it's just me against the world kind of mentality, that's attractive to a lot of people. In tournament poker, is different than cash poker. Cash poker, you could have $15,000 in front of you in a big poker game, and nobody knows if you're up or down. Nobody tracks what you bought in. Nobody cares. I mean, people care, but most people are coming in after the fact when you won it. They don't have any idea if you're up or down. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten to a table and I'll be playing a game, like a local game, which is 2 to 100 spread limit. Back in the day, it was 2 to 60 back then when I played a lot. And you'd be playing 260, and somebody'd have $1,100 in front of them, which is a lot back then, with $60 max bets. But you didn't know how much they're in for. You assume they're ahead, and a lot of times they are, but there's a decent amount of times where they're in for $1,500. They just finally caught their run because they're a maniac. So that's kind of how it went. You couldn't, in these 2 to 60 games, as many of you locally know, you can't, in Minnesota, you can't buy in for more than $200 back then. So if you had $1,100 in front of you, you were probably ahead, is what I'm saying. You couldn't just buy all those chips at the table. There's a cap in how many chips you can buy at a time. And you can never have more than 200 at the table on a buy in. So in cash games, you don't know, who's ahead or who's behind, so to speak. There's no listings of who won that week. There's no listing who won the event like there is in tournament poker. In tournament poker, it's far more dynamic for those types of people, and that's why people like poker on the tournament side. That, and it's an easier place to learn. And what I mean by that is if you sit down with a few $100s over a week and play cash poker, it could last a very short period of time. That could go wrong fast, especially if you're inexperienced, and you would not get your bang for your buck, so to speak. In tournament poker, you generally do. If you're going to play a $20, $30, $40, $50 tournament, you can buy in 1 or 2 times each time and probably last at least through the buy-in period, which is, how many levels they play until you can't buy in anymore. And then maybe even longer. And if you played $200 to $300 locally in tournaments, you're likely to cash or go deep in a few of them, and you feel like you got your bang for your buck, and that gives you that experience that you need that's very valuable. It takes time to get that experience, to get final table experience, to get cash experience, cashing in a tournament experience, and then deep runs into final tables and chop scenarios and winning tournaments. Not everybody gets to do that right away. As a matter of fact, most people don't do it for a long time. It's hard to bink a tournament, we call it. A lot of the tournament scene in the local casinos, Canterbury, of course, and Running Aces, and for a long time, Turtle Lake and Mille Lacs and Grand Casino up there in Hinckley. They had a lot of tournaments over the years, but going back, to the 90s, and those tournaments they've become very dynamic over the years. They've become far more, I guess, progressive is the right word. And what I'm trying to get at is most people that play those tournaments, it's never changed since then. You play bang for your buck, notoriety, and money. And I'm going to be honest, I think it's in that order. You play for the event to learn, and then you want people to know you're good, because why the heck wouldn't you? And then you win money. And it kind of goes in that order, And to win a tournament or to bink a tournament, sometimes it takes time. Sometimes you hit one in your first few, and sometimes it takes you a couple of years. And people now chop more than ever in the local casinos because it's advantageous, because the casinos are smart enough to know that you design the tournaments to make them last X amount of time, so they're profitable. Casino has to be profitable. If it's not profitable, they're not going to keep having poker tournaments. That would be illogical. They'll just turn them into cash games or put blackjack tables up or slot machines if they can. So they have to be profitable, and they can only last so long. So if you design them so the money's heavy up top or heavier up top, What'll basically happen at that point is that will force the players, not force them, but it's more advantageous at one point where you only have so many big blinds and it becomes, luck becomes too involved for a good player that they'll just go ahead and start talking chop. It doesn't matter if you're playing a $150 tournament where first place is $6,000. Well, when fourth place is 1,300 or fifth place is 1,300, you're interested in, I don't want to win just 1,300. I want to win $6,000. But once people say, how about $2,000 each, that starts to get very intriguing. $2,000, 2,500, that starts to sound a little better, right? And there's less risk involved. You doesn't mean aces win just because you get them in with aces. Next thing you know, you're next out. So if you have an advantage, obviously you're going to play the tournament out as long as you can. But at one point, casinos set it up so, the tournament only lasts so long. The blind levels go through the roof, and now you look down and you had 26 big blinds, and an hour later you haven't won any hands, and you've progressed down, or you've digressed down, and now you have 12 big blinds. Well, now it's Gamble City, You raise, it's basically all in. The other person calls because you're seven-handed. He's got an ace, you got an ace, here we go, That's just kind of how it ends up going. You all know that if you've played tournaments. What I want to kind of get into, getting away from the tournament scene, is it seems like a lot of the home games are playing cash games and tournaments, or both. I've heard everything from the small levels, to, I'm even talking pennies, 10 cent, 20 cent stuff, all the way up to a couple of nosebleed games I got invited to, which are a 5, 10, 25 game going on locally. Holy moly. I don't think people understand how big that is. You could be in for about $7-8 grand in a game like that in an hour. Take a couple bad hits. It's easy to do, set over set type stuff. So even if I'm talking about if you're a net. So I think that the local games right now, I feel like they're getting momentum and they're doing well, but with the rules that Running Aces only being able to have 5 cash games at any given time, and the reason they're doing that, it's pretty obvious. They need as many pit games or blackjack games open as possible, and they have a cap on how many games they can have, and then on top of that cap, they can only have 25% of what they would be able to hold in a capacity level, which makes it damn near impossible for them to profit. They have many more games open, but with the 3 people per table rule, you're burning labor. Instead of having 60 people spread out over, you wouldn't be at 10 tables, but say there are about 14 tables, average of 4.5 to 5 per table on a busy day or night, you're going to have issues with that because you're going to have 3 people per table. And at 3 people max, doing the simple math, you got a problem. Okay, you got to open up 20 tables for that many people, and that's a lot of labor. Not only do you have labor with when I say labor, you're thinking probably a dealer. Well, yeah, you have the dealers, of course. You have to have a string of dealers. You have to have breakers for the dealers, and then you have to have pit bosses for each pit, or pod, if you will. And then on top of the pit bosses, you have to have managers on duty. So it's very expensive to run those games, and it's difficult. They still make money. Don't get me wrong. Running Aces, Canterbury run pretty close when it comes to that. Running Aces has that 5-game cap because they need to have the dealers, the tables, and the money flowing in potentially for blackjack to stay open. That's common sense. Canterbury is having the same issue. The thing is, their pit is nowhere near as busy as Running Aces traditionally. It's not even close. They have huge competition right down the road in Mystic Lake and Little Six, so they take a lot of the blackjack play in that area, and they get some of the pit play and the fun play during race days. You get 7,000-8,000 spectators coming to watch a horse race. Decent chance you're going to get some of them playing some of your pit games, so they make some money on that, of course. But your typical Friday night, they do good. Your typical Saturday night, I'm talking about pre-COVID here, they do pretty good at Canterbury. But Monday through Friday days, they do okay. They're nowhere near as busy as Running Aces pit. They're nowhere near as busy as Mystic Lake's pit. and they got to make a large percentage of their money then on poker. And so they're having 15 games right now because they don't need that many dealers or tables set up just for pit games, blackjack, if you will. We're also talking about Pygo and all the other carnival games, I call them. So the two casinos are struggling right now. So when they're struggling financially and to get players into the rooms to gamble and have fun, I know a lot of people don't want to go because you got to wear a mask. I know quite a few people don't want to go because Running Aces is doing it a little bit different. They're actually, you have to call ahead. You have to reserve your table, so to speak. You have to go in and you have to basically stay at that table. So if you go to a $10 blackjack table, you can play another game. You just have to sign up for a different type of game, but you can't what we call table bounce or walk around the room and figure out what you want to do like you used to be able to. You can to a certain aspect, of course. Certain aspect, of course. But you can't, same thing in poker. You can't go back and hang out in the poker area as far as I know. You sign up for poker, and they have 5 tables max, 6 person per table. It means 30 people can play poker max on a Friday night. And during peak season, pre-COVID, we would have, they would have 18, 16, 15 games going was typical. So you can see they're losing money consistently. And then with not running tournaments, tournaments are profitable, and they're not making money on those, neither casino. I do see that Canterbury announced recently that they are going to open tournaments. I believe, I can't remember the date. Let me take a peek here. They are doing those. When are those? Oh, August 21st, they are opening up tournaments. Like Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. What an odd situation. They're going to do a Saturday day tournament like they normally would, and they're going to do a Friday day earlier than normal, and then a Sunday midday type thing. That's strategic. That's interesting. Their slowest days are going to be Monday through Thursday. I'm a little surprised that they're not running Monday through Thursday tournaments. I'm curious to see what's going on there, or maybe that this could be just lasting a week or two, and then they jump back to their regular schedule and go, yeah, the players are coming back. You need tournament players in a casino walking the room. They make it look filled. That's always a good thing. They do spend money on food. Tournament players do spend money on cash games, and they do play in the pit. So, they're important. A lot of tournament players play cash, but you do need them either way. They're very, very, very vital. It's the growth. I'm not going to get into the system of growth and how a poker room grows, but it needs tournaments. You can just take Black Bear Casino locally, Turtle Lake Casino locally, Grand Casinos, both of them Mille Lacs, and Turtle Lake, and realize why they've either closed or basically become non-existent. It's key. It's not just because of the locations. I mean, people aren't going to drive from Mille Lacs to Canterbury to play much poker unless they're like a semi-pro. They're not going to drive by 2 hours more to play poker. They're just going to go to Mille Lacs and play if they want to go play in a tournament. But they don't have tournaments much. They do. They have like sit and goes. They're silly. They don't even count. So none of these tournaments ran good quality tournaments, and they wanted to run cash because casinos are greedy. And by not running tournaments, you're not making any more players in the area. That's where people are created. That's where players are created. That's where new players breed. They breed in the tournament area. That's where they learn. Remember back to the bang for your buck thing. That's where it begins. It all starts in tournament poker. It always has so far, and it always will. That could change. Poker has evolved many times over in my time in it, and it will continue to. But currently, and in the past, tournament poker is where you need to grow players. That's where players learn how to play, and then they evolve into cash players. Some never will play cash. I know players, many of them, that have hardly ever played cash. They just play tournament poker only. But, some of those guys go in the pit, and they spend a lot of money, so that's beneficial to the casinos that they gamble a little bit somewhere else other than tournament poker. Many, many, many years ago, places like Canterbury ran tournaments just because the players wanted them, but they were not profitable. They did not set them up to be profitable. They were not properly raked. They lasted too long, and if that type of scenario back then didn't work, they didn't really necessarily know what their audience was or what their clientele wanted or needed. A lot of times, if you give your players what they want in poker or in a casino, it's actually bad for you. It's actually bad for the casino. If you give them 10-hour tournaments or 7-hour tournaments with a $50 buy-in, go ahead and tell me how you're going to profit on that. That's what they want. That's what all players want. They don't want the blinds. They want 17 people to a table, bigger tables. They don't want to ever see the blinds, and they want to survive forever. I get it. We all want to do that. It kind of goes without saying. However, that's not conducive, and it's not going to work. And then the best players would win all the money. It's my old siphon theory. If you take an oil funnel, and you take that oil funnel, you hold it up, you put all the money in it, all right? If you have super, super deep structures, I'm talking what we had about 5 years ago in this state, 6 years ago in this state, if you do those tournaments where you're talking, 20-minute levels, and we start at 25.50, and we have the 75.150 in there, we go on and on and on, and we were literally running aces. Can only speak for them at the time. We're running 7.5-hour $50 tournaments. That's how long it took. That's how much money you got for your player. That's how much bang you got for your buck. Well, all of the money in that oil funnel were going to the 5%ers. So all the good players were taking all of the money. And you know what winning poker players, consistent winning poker players do with money? They do not put it back into the system. Okay? They do invest in their careers. They do invest in their poker. But most winning tournament players consistently take that money out of the room and pay their bills. They buy stuff, but they don't spend money in the casino with it as much. When you have a turbo tournament, when you have tournaments that last 4.5 hours for $50, well, somebody banks $1,200 and somebody wins $800 and so on. Well, they're excited and they want to play more poker. But they banked it. They got a lot luckier than they think they did. It's turbo, At one point, it's just get it in with any ace, And there's luck involved, a lot of luck involved. There's always luck involved in poker, don't get me wrong. But if you let a good, solid, consistent player play against 6 average players and 2 other good ones, he's going to win a lot more often and take a lot more money out of a poker tournament with long, durable structures. I'm talking, 30-minute blind levels on a $100 buy-in with all of the micro levels involved, antes late, that kind of thing that we were doing 5-6 years ago in the poker scene. They were taking all of the money. The super deep structures, it was crazy. They were taking the money and holding it and keeping it, and that suffocates the tournament area. That takes too much money out of it. It's better for poker if you have more turbo-ish type tournaments. You can have a happy medium, and I think right now, to be honest with you, it is a pretty happy medium. The old Tuesday night, Monday night Canterbury, Tuesday night Canterbury, running aces, the Sunday afternoon double stacks, and then that's it, I believe. And then there used to be the Wednesday. That I don't even count the Wednesday Canterbury tournament anymore. It's not great. But you take those 3 double stacks, and you have huge prize pools, but you really just have a $150 buy-in, basically a $25 rake, and the rest goes into the prize pool. So you have huge prize pools and pretty good structures for about 2.5 hours. So you got 20-minute blind levels. You have, none of the micro levels in there, but you all got good levels. But at one point, you're going to be at 1,000, 2,000. You're going to be at 1,500, 3,000, 2,000, 4,000 blind levels, and the antes are huge. And with big blind ante, it's better, but we'll get into that to another time. But you go through that, and at that point, it kind of starts to turn into a turbo, any ace, that kind of talk. Any button steals, stuff like that. So you get to a point where it's just, late stage, low stack type pushing. You look at most of the final tables at running aces on a Tuesday night double stack, and, the average big blinds are like 16, which is great for that type of tournament. But when do you want it to end? Do you want it to end at 4:30 in the morning? I mean, come on. 30% of the field has to work at 7 a.m., So you can't have them last too long, but you get bang for your buck is my point. You get what you need in those 3 tournaments. You get that, but the money still spreads around enough. Not as much as a $50 tournament, not as much as even a $100 tournament, certainly not as much as a $30 tournament. But the $150 double stack, my point is consistent cashers. A lot of consistent cashers. And different winners, though. Because, it gets to a point where it's a luck tournament. It's kind of a perfectly designed tournament for both the players economy, when I say the ecosystem, so, how it spreads around. You need that money to spread around a little bit, unless you're the one trying to win it all. You need that money spreading around. You need different people winning, because then they can fund their bankroll. And when people are funding their bankroll, they can come back into the casino and play more tournament poker or whatever. So it's important to have good tournaments along with, your turbos. The turbos, the $50, the $35, the $30, all of the tournaments at Canterbury and Running Aces, under, we'll say $150, are all pretty much turbos. And when I say turbos, it means you've got about an hour and you better have a chip stack, or you're playing with a lot of luck. And what basically happens there is that money spreads around, and it spreads around very well. It's like a big wheel, and it may land on you. If it lands on you, you take the most money and you walk out of there and come back and bring it back to the casino and play more tournament poker, more cash poker, whatever. Cannot tell you how many times I've seen people win a $50 tournament and leave the casino with no money because they walk over and play blackjack, or they walk over to the cash games. And it just happens. They invest the money back into the economy better, the poker economy, that is, or the casino. And with that being said, you need those tournaments. You need those types of tournaments in the area. So my point is that Canterbury is opening up their tournaments. Looks like they're going to have $150 with $50 bounties on Fridays. Not sure why they're doing bounties. I don't see how that's necessary. Maybe just trying to be diverse. The Saturday is their $150. I'm guessing these are going to have double stack type. I haven't seen any structure sheets, but they'll probably be double stack type events. They probably will not be any better structures than that. It'd be surprising. I don't know that they want to be tying up tables like that and employees like that in this current status of COVID and all that. I don't know. I think they're going to have to max out at 6-person tables currently. And if they do, I mean, come on, you're going to max those tournaments with like how many people at the table? 42, I think they said. So 42 seats guaranteed, and if they have more space, they'll probably open up 4 or 5 more tables, so maybe you get 60, 70, 80 people seated. But those are going to have to still be pretty turbo-ish, and they are 6 max. And then the Sunday is another 150 at 3 o'clock. I'm guessing that's going to be pretty much the same as the Saturday and pretty similar to the Friday as far as structure goes. So that's interesting. I'm guessing, obviously I have inside information and I know things. I won't comment on how and when Running Aces is going to be opening up tournaments. I just stay tuned. I'll give you that information the moment I can confirm it and know it to be a fact. But it's currently not a fact. I can tell you that much. But in the future, it shouldn't be long. That's a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge there for you kids. I do know that some local, I know Venetian, I know, getting off local for a second, I know a lot of casinos are currently holding tournaments. I think 7 max I saw out in Vegas. I could be incorrect about that, but I saw some 7 maxes out there. I don't know what I've seen outside of that. I do pay attention to it, not as closely the last month as I thought I would. I've been busy, but I'm starting to get back into it. I do believe that, we're probably just a couple of months away in the local scene to getting closer to what it's going to look like now. Normal, what we'll call normal. I don't know that we'll have 10-person tournaments for a while. Hell, maybe ever. But who knows? I know a lot of people advocate for 9-person tournaments. I hear that all of the time, especially what I call the elite players or people who are willing to spend $1,000 on a tournament and up, or even 500. They want 9 people at the table. They want more room. I get it, but those are also sometimes the same people who complain when one table's 9-handed in a tournament, the other's 7-handed, and the other one's 8-handed. And they're like, move a player. You've seen it, you've heard it, you know what I'm talking about. I'm a tournament director, I hear it every day, and we always at Running Aces pride ourselves on doing the best we can and keeping those tables even, but that's within TDA rules. The rule is 2. So You're at 7, you're at 9, and that other tables and 3 tables is at 8. In the old days, that's how it would be. They'd be the first ones screaming and yelling, but then they're the same ones. Oh, 9 max. Well, come on, man. You see where you're going with that? You see where I'm going with that? That's kind of got a little bit of force on itself. Doesn't mean it's wrong. I mean, I'm the same way when I'm playing. I don't want to play shorthanded because the blinds are coming around and I'm playing good and I have 19 bigs and I don't want this to turn into 12 bigs because the tournament director won't get off his ass and come over and make us all even. Well, that's not what it always is. That only looks like it is. The tournament director has other things that he's paying attention to. Like he knows that the next big blind has 2 big blinds. He looked over. He saw it. He used common sense. And the TDA rule is that if you're within 2, it's okay. You don't have to move that player. And you certainly aren't going to move a player from a table to a table if you can that's going to break next. You try not to do that too. So there's more going on there, just inside information, why a tournament director does things. I cannot speak for Canterbury. I've never worked at Canterbury. I've never worked at any other casino, to be honest. I can't speak how they do it. I've played many tournaments over the years there. I'll say it, they're not as good at it. And I know I sound biased, but they're just not as good at it. They're not as consistent at it. They're not as efficient at it. They do stay pretty close to the TDA rule, though. I'm not saying they have 10-person tables in the old days, and during an MSPT event, so to speak, or for example, they would have 10 at one table and 6 at another. I'm not saying maybe to start the tournament, yes, but the people are still buying in. They're just coming to the tables. They'll be there, but I'm not talking about egregious things, but they don't seem to be as fast at it and persistent at it because their system isn't set up the same. And it's not the tournament director's fault, in my opinion. It's the way it's set up. It's the way their tournaments are set up and designed. It's where the tournament director is in location to the tournament. That is also an issue there. We're taught at Running Aces to be more efficient than that, to give that customer service to the best of our abilities. It's part of your job. And to balance those tables to the very best of your ability is not paramount, even though the players seem to think it is. It's, there are times, there are other things happening in the world. Casinos do have things come up, I'll give you an example. I was running a tournament a couple years ago, and it was, an important tournament, 150 double stack. So when I say important, they're all important, but this one, the players are a little bit more in tune with how rules work. And one of the players was mad because we were down to 2 tables, and we had 9 at one table, and we had 7 at the other table. Okay. I'll generally, 2 and under tables, I will run right over there and I will move a player as fast as possible without interrupting play and make those 2, the 16 players, making them 8 and 8. It's what we do at Running Aces. We try and keep it consistent, and we want you to feel like you're getting your bang for your buck, Don't have to, by the way. Remember, TDA rules within 2. 9 and 7 is completely fine. Move on. But, we'll do it because the tournament directors at Running Aces are good. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So with that being said, in this scenario, we are sitting there at 9 and 7. Well, I hear player down, which we don't say anymore, but player down, and I don't hear a table number. Well, you're supposed to announce a table number so the tournament director, if he's at his desk doing his job, at that time he will know, okay, common sense tells me now we're fine, we're at 8 and 7. We're not. He doesn't say it. Well, I'm assuming I didn't hear any players screaming, so we're not at 9 and 6. We're not at 9-person table and 6-person table. We are at 8 and 7. Perfect. All right, we're right on track. That happens every day, every tournament. I don't hear anything for a few seconds. Well, at the same time, the phone rings. It's surveillance. Surveillance calls, you pick up the phone and you pick it up fast. It's usually very, very important. And it was very important. I will not get into the details of what the phone call entitled, but the phone call entitled somebody's job on the line, and I'm talking right here and right now. Not my job, but somebody else's job. So I've got to handle this immediately. Before I can even start the conversation with this person, after I hear what's going on, I have 2 or 3 players standing up yelling and screaming at me. And I, at this point, tell the surveillance Gentlemen, just one moment. I ask what's going on. The dealer is also standing up, which is a big no-no, and they are yelling, blah, blah, blah. Well, we're one short, what's going on? This is a big deal to them, and I understand that. I appreciate that. So I tell the surveillance person I will be right back. I have to go fix the situation in the card room. Shouldn't take more than 25 seconds. Okay, don't even put them on hold. I set the phone down. I walk around the tables, and I go ahead and I balance them. Well, at that time, the other table is in a huge hand between three players all in. Common sense dictates me that one of these people is going to be knocked out and we're going to be back to balanced, or even two. That is exactly what happened. Two of the players were knocked out. Next thing you know, you can do a common sense here. We're at 7-6 now. We're down to 13 players. Okay, this happens every day in every tournament. And these are one of the scenarios, and that's not even an extreme scenario. That's just one of the scenarios that happens. A little insight on how a tournament director runs a tournament. There's a little bit of balance involved, but at the same time, most of us have it down. We know what we're doing. We know what's happening. We do the best we can for you. We do the best we can to make it a great tournament experience for you because we do want you to have fun. Me personally, I want you to have fun. I want you to have a blast. I want you to giggle. I want you to laugh. I want you to have a great time. And at the same time, I want you to come back and do it again down the road, whenever that is, whatever you can afford. But we try to give you the best experience we can. I always try to give you the best experience you can. I'm giving you a little insight on how casinos think. I'm giving you a little insight on how tournament directors think. I'm giving you a little insight on how tournament managers think. I'm giving you a little insight on how poker floors and even dealers think. And I'll keep doing that, and I'll give you as much inside information as I can, without, crossing any lines on either side. I don't want to irritate anybody or piss anybody off in the poker world. It's a great community. It's a fun community. I've been involved in it for a really long time. I used to play a lot of poker back in the day. I've been playing in casinos since like 1990 something. I want to say 8-ish, whenever Canterbury started running their 1-2 stud game and their 2-4 stud game. And then they had a 2-4 and I believe a 3-6 hold'em game way back then. That was the big games. I mean, they didn't have much going on outside of that. And then they started to evolve and got the 15-30 game going and things like that. But that decent amount of money back then, putting $100 into a game. The economy was different. But that's how long I've been in casinos playing poker. I've played every level of tournament to a certain degree. I feel like I have a pretty decent thumb on the pulse of what's going on most of the time because I've been so in-depthly involved the last 10 years for sure, 15 maybe even. And obviously I've been working in the casino world now for the last 5 or 6, trying to keep abreast of what's going on. I study other casinos. I talk to other tournament directors from other casinos via Twitter, phone calls. I try to stay involved in what's changing because, in Minnesota, there's an old theory, we'll always be wearing clothes that they were wearing in LA 3 years ago because we're that far behind. We're not that far behind in poker because we have national social media. We can watch Twitter, use Twitter, we can use Facebook and whatnot. We'll know what games they're playing or how they're playing them or what tournaments they're playing or what tournaments they're playing in different states far in advance than we would have known in 2005 or 7 because you had to use a magazine back then for the most part. That's how you got your information. Well, that was after the effect, Nowadays, you'll know within hours when a tournament ends what they're playing out in, the bike, so to speak, out in Hollywood. You'll know what they're doing, and I watch those trends, and I watch and see what happens. That's how I design poker tournaments. I design them based on what's hot and what's working because, you can get mundane as a casino. You don't want to get too mundane. Yeah, Texas Hold'em will always probably be king, but there's other forms of Texas Hold'em, and there's other forms of poker that people enjoy to play. Omaha has kind of taken over the running aces area, so to speak. Sometimes there's 3 Omaha games in cash, and then there's 3 Hold'em games going. Well, you can take that to poker, but that doesn't mean it's going to work because I know for a fact that pot limit Omaha works pretty poorly in the tournament scene. I'm not saying it's not fun. And I'm not saying you don't do it, and I'm not saying you can't do it. What I'm saying is, what are you going to do? Give them 40,000 in chips and 30-minute blind lap? Come on. The tournament, even though you'll have 50, 60 people in the tournament, it's going to last 8 hours. I know it's going to last 8 hours because I know how structures work. I helped design them, and I've studied them for years. And you have to be careful. How long a tournament lasts, there's a formula for it. And in Pot Limit Omaha, to make it fun, you can't make any money as a casino, and a lot of the players, they're still going to be potted in, on the third levels, even though they have 40,000 in chips and the blinds are only 1,100, because that's how Pot Limit Omaha plays. It's a big game. When you have a double combo draw on the turn, you're getting it in. You ain't folding. Pot go. My point being that Pot Limit Omaha is a tough. 7-card stud is really slow and boring in tournament form. Pot Limit Omaha is a little too fast and furious in tournament form. And all of the combinations, you got your high-low combinations and all the other fun tournament things you can do. And they're fun. You should do them once in a while. Don't get me wrong, as a casino, you should offer them. And you should learn them as a player if you choose to, because maybe you find advantages. But they don't work as well as good old-fashioned no-limit Texas Hold'em. It works perfectly. It has a great formula for success for both the players who like it because it's easy and it's simple. And, of course, the casino can profit. And, again, going back to the very top of the broadcast, casinos do have to profit. If a casino doesn't profit, well, then you have Black Bear, and they don't have a poker room anymore. If they don't profit in Turtle Lake, they're open 2 days a week. If they don't profit down at Treasure Island, they're open 2-3 days a week. I forgot about Treasure Island earlier, by the way. If they don't profit up at Hinckley, they close like they did, And that's just what's going to happen. You need tournament poker to keep everything going, but they also have to profit from tournament poker and get you to play cash games so they can keep the lights on. So keep that in mind when you're playing locally, when you're not playing in your home games, which I know you are right now. When you're playing at Running Aces or Canterbury locally, please keep it in mind that, they got to make money. I understand you want to complain about the structures. I'm included, by the way. We want to complain about everything. But the casino does have to make money. Casino has to profit. And if it does not profit, it cannot hold the game. Let me explain why. Because they have other games they can put on those tables. We all know casinos make money on blackjack, slots, pit games. It's where they make all their money. They make peanuts in poker. Is it enough to matter? Yeah. Do you want poker players in Minnesota going into rooms without slots? Yeah. It's very important. What keeps Canterbury and Running Aces open is poker, because those players come in and play other games, spend money everywhere, and that gives you more money profit as a casino and more play per person. That's very important, and you need those tournament players in there to do that. So you tournament players, you keep the casinos running. You are the lifeline to a casino. If Running Aces, for instance, were to abandon poker tournaments permanently, and that I'll be honest, it's been brought up in the past. So say you do that, you take tournaments out, I give that room 5 years and it's closed. And here's why I say that. Back to the beginning. You need tournament poker to get the players their bang for their buck, to keep them involved. They'll get bored if they lose every single time. Who the hell's going to keep coming back? That's crazy. So you're going to continue to come in. You're going to spend that money on poker, and you're going to bang a tournament here and there, and maybe you start playing cash, because most do. And then you start getting the cash games going, and that's where the players come from. Very few come in and just sit down and start playing 3-6 kill, Hold'em, cash, 2-100. Come on. That could last 5 minutes, and a lot of times it does. You get aces, boom, guy flops a set on you lost your whole stack. Okay, there goes your $300 you wanted to play with. Well, that could have bought you into 5-6 tournaments if you're playing at the low level. That's a lot. That's a lot of bang for your buck. So it's very important that we have tournaments and casinos locally, because that keeps the lifeline going. Got to have a lifeline. All right, that's probably about it for this podcast. We're going to talk more in the poker scene here on Deebo and The Donks over the next few episodes. I do have other types of podcasts I do. If you're interested, go ahead and check. I'll leave ways to do that in the information on whatever podcast you're listening to, if you're doing it on YouTube or iHeartRadio or any of the other many podcast firms. I believe iHeartRadio is now the number one podcast go-to for people to listen in the entire world, which blows my mind, with iTunes and YouTube and all the other people and places, that you can, Facebook even, where you can go do and listen to your podcasts. And I love to listen to podcasts, don't get me wrong, that's why I'm involved. That iHeart would be the number one. I find that to be sketchy. I'm not 100% that sure. I don't want to bash iHeart, because who knows, maybe they want to sponsor me. But it blows my mind that they're number one, and I don't know how that is, because when I started searching for podcasts to listen to years ago, that would not even come up. Many other venues would come up as my places to go to. So again, I will leave information on where you can listen to my other things. I do talk about other things other than poker. I do have an entire situation where I just talk sports, what I know about sports, high school level, collegiate level, pro level. I love hockey, football, and basketball a little bit, baseball, things like that. Local, I love the Vikings, Twins, Gophers, somewhat the Wild. I'm more of a huge Penguins fan because I'm a geek. I don't know why. I have been since I was a child. I'm also a big Steelers fan, so if you like to listen to Steelers or Penguins inside talk locally, I will get into that down the road. What I mean by that is I give you the information you might not be able to get from your local newspapers or radio stations. They're not going to talk a whole lot of Penguins hockey here in Minnesota, but you can get that information because I get it from other people who are reliable in the Pittsburgh scene, directly in Pittsburgh. Follow them on Twitter, places like that, and you can get that information faster and more reliably. And then I also do a Making a Murderer podcast where I talk about the case, which is Making a Murderer, about Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey and their conviction for murder. If you haven't watched Making a Murderer seasons 1 or 2 on Netflix, I urge you to, and then please go listen to my podcast down the road or whenever you choose to, because that is a pretty addicting and fascinating show if you have not seen it. I'm probably way past that, or I go onto a place called Reddit. I'm sure you guys have heard of Reddit, or I'm on YouTube, and I'm constantly, over the years, following the case, learning, reading case documents, and trying to figure out what in the world is going on there, because it's probably the most dynamic and diversified, and there's those layers and layers and layers and layers in this case, and it never ends. I mean, you're at a point where there's like 40 people that could have possibly had the opportunity to commit this murder, and they're not even in prison for it. The 2 people in prison are maybe the least likely to have done it, but that's a matter of opinion. We'll get into that down the road. So thanks again for listening to Deebo and The Donks. I will try to put out a bunch more poker podcasts over the next few weeks and months. If you're interested and like it, please share the information. Again, I will always try to get as in-depth as I can, but being that I'm still in the poker world as far as work goes, I can only go so in-depth, but I will answer any questions that I can. I will be having local guests on. I will be having national guests on, so if you're interested in hearing that, you'll look forward to seeing that. All right, thanks a lot, and have a great day.